Hey, can I get some license-free intro music? There it is. Yeah. It's the Capital City Podcast. I'm your host, Capital J, alongside my main man,
DL Glass.
And tonight, we have a very special guest joining us. Some would say legendary. The legendary MC, Serch.
Hey, what's up, Cap?
What's going on, man?
Cap talking at Cap already. Terrible way to start up a podcast with live. What up, DL? How are you, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
If I was any better, I'd be twins.
I like that.
Yeah, we're going to have to use that.
I am going to use that.
Free. It's free like the music you used at the beginning of your show. It's all free.
It's all free. You know, there's a reason, y'all. There's a reason.
Right.
Well, since we have this very special guest in here today, this is the time now, Serch, what we usually do on our show, when we have a guest on, you know, some people invite a guest on to talk about current affairs or, you know, trending topics. We bring you on. We just want to hear about you. And when we bring guests on, it's about them. You know what I mean? And we try to educate our listeners and bring on people who can tell them something they didn't know as far as maybe, you know, how to get in and all that good stuff. So, and so when we talk to people, you know, we want to hear your history, how you got involved in the game and all that. All right. So, Serch. Well, first of all, for those of you that do not know, MC Serch was a member of a band or rap group, per se, called Third Base. Very popular back in the day. You saw their videos on BET and MTV. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk to this man for a little while. All right, Serch, so tell me, and not to mention, I can't leave out the elephant in the room. This is the first, I'm doing air quotes, Serch, the first white MC that I saw get national burn.
Gotcha.
Okay? So tell me, how do you get involved in the game, starting with your first introduction to hip-hop?
Well, I mean, I think the important thing is to remember that there was no game.
Right.
I mean, there was no game. The game was that we were spinning on cardboard or linoleum to get some bread to just go get wine coolers, right? Or we were tagging our names on trains and walls to get fame, or we were going to block parties where DJs were spinning records and had giant speakers, or, you know, there was a guy on the microphone to tell people at the park jam that, you know, somebody's mama wanted them back home before the lights came on, or you had to move your car because the cops were coming. You know, I heard Grand Mixer DXT say it really succinctly. Like, he said that we were involved in hip hop when there was no hip hop.
Right.
You know, the name hip hop, actually, the funny thing is, we, as the individuals who created this thing, we didn't even name it. You know, somebody heard the Sugar Hill Gang record, Rapper's Delight, and heard a hop, the hip to the hip hoppy, you know, and then they just like, oh, that must be hip hop, and that's where they got the name.
Music. Right.
And that's where it stuck. There's a culture behind this thing we call hip hop, which is, you know, MCing, DJing, graffiti, right?
Right.
And then, you know, you have, what did I leave out? MCing, DJing, graffiti, breakdancing. And then the fifth part was doing the knowledge. Like, there was this whole part of it, whether you were a 5%er or you were Zulu Nation, there were chapters that you had to read about an ethical way of handling yourself, of maintaining peace and tranquility, peace, unity, love, and having fun were the tenets of doing the knowledge, right? And then we leave out beatboxing, which to me is one of the other components that we just failed to give its proper respect to as we name this culture.
Amen.
My introduction to this was that, like, my boys just start b-boying and dancing on the floors, and we're tagging our names, and we're not using our real names because, you know, you don't want to get arrested by the cops. So you got to come up with another name, right? So, you know, that became a part of it. On top of it, there was like the 5% Nation. So now all my friends who had their, what we call government names, right? That names that were given to them by the state or by their parents, they were electing their own names, right? Mathematics, law, Duquan, understanding, Umar Allah. Like, people were now re-educating themselves, understanding a deeper appreciation, not only for who they were as men and women on the planet Earth, but what their purpose was as men and women on the planet Earth. You know, like, they created this ecosystem that if you were not interested in it, you're on the outside, right? And if you were interested in it, you were very much on the inside, because you would have to know somebody to know somebody to know what was going on.
Right.
There was no social media. There was no Instagram. You know, the only time Instagram was when pictures got passed around at a family reunion. That was Instagram.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, and the subway became the information superhighway, because if there was a block party going on your block that weekend and you were already uptown, well, you were telling everybody uptown, and you were taking the 6 train or the 4 train or the 3 train or the 8 train or the D or the B, and you were moving around the city and you're telling people about your park jam. So then there were the flyers, and you know what I'm saying? So it was an endeavor for freedom. It was an endeavor for individuality. It was an endeavor for creativity. It was an endeavor to hear what we loved in our music being played in avenues and restricted areas where the big, you know, monoliths, the television stations, which were important. You know, we didn't have YouTube. You didn't have, you know, all this content to stream from. You had 4 channels, you know. Mm-hmm. You had, you know, ABC, CBS, NBC, and UHF.
And UHF. They
get you so that was it. Those were the 4 channels.
Right.
If you were in New York, you had 7 channels, because you had ABC, CBS, NBC, PIX, WOR, UCF, and NYC. So NYC is where you had Video Music Box and then later U68, right?
Oh, so that's where Video Music Box was. I always heard like Video Music Box is something that we didn't get down here.
Oh, bro.
So I used to hear about it all the time, but I never got a chance to I had to wait for Night Flight.
So I don't know if you guys remember showing ABC TV, and I don't know if it was in the Carolinas, but it was called Friday Night something. And it was Jesse from General Hospital was the host.
And they would play videos at late night after hours.
Play videos, and it would be at a nightclub. And that was the start of, like, Video Music Box was basically a show that was done by 2 people, the Vid Kid and Ralph McDaniels, and they would play music videos. The majority of us in the 5 boroughs learned music because of Video Music Box. Because they would play songs that the radio stations wouldn't play. They would play videos that you couldn't see anywhere else. And you would experience music in a whole new way. And we would run home because school would let out at 3, and then Video Music Box was on, you know, channel 25, WNYC from 4 to 5.
Dope.
So during that hour,
run home to watch that. And let me tell you something. It didn't matter what video was on, because anybody on Video Music Box in 1985, when I saw your video, you must have been a millionaire. That was it.
Now, the artists that they showcased,
the Bad Boys, I'm like, damn, those guys are millionaires. They got a video on Video Music Box.
The artists that they showcased, were they national artists, or was this regional to
the Northeast?
No, it didn't matter. For a kid from Far Rockaway, every video was global. You were from. It didn't matter.
Right.
It was on TV, bro.
Right.
You understand? Like, it was on television.
Right.
The same television that, like, Walter Cronkite, that my mother watched. The same television that Peter Jennings was on. The same television that Barbara Walters was on.
Right. Big deal back in the day.
So it didn't, bro. It didn't matter. There was no such thing as were they No, you were the biggest star in the world.
So
Because the Bad Boys would have their video. Literally, I remember, like, this would be the rotation on Video Music Box. It'd be the Bad Boys, Inspector Gadget, Lottie Dottie, Madonna, like a virgin, or Madonna, dance and sing, get up and do your thing, like Shining Star, one of the first Jelly Bean Benitez records, right?
Right.
Then, who do you love, girl? I'm in love with you. Then David Bowie, and then the audio too. So it didn't matter.
Yeah, see, we down here, we would catch, during that time period, this is the early days of Video Soul and Video Vibration. Video Vibration was the one that played the hip-hop videos.
Okay.
And Video Soul was Donnie Simpson.
Right.
But Video Vibration,
Let me put it like
to
this,
catch
bro.
a lot of that.
Let me put it like this, Brody. Like, yo, you had a big group that came out of your neighborhood, the Skinny Boys, Jogbox.
Oh, that was the Connecticut cats.
No, I thought Skinny Boys were from the Carolinas.
Nah, they were from Connecticut.
Word?
Skinny Boys were Connecticut cats. Yep, that's
Bro, I thought
that's
forever
south
the
of y'all.
Skinny Boys were from down south near Raleigh or some shit.
Nah, we can't claim the Skinny Boys.
Damn. Well, yo, I remember Skinny Boys coming on Video Music Box. I'm like, yo, they a millionaire.
They were dope. They were
That
dope.
Jogbox were crazy. So, yo, so there was no but within 5 years from 1980 to 1985, now all of a sudden there's people with record deals and people with T-shirts and people with 12-inch singles and cassettes. It was a phenomenal time to be alive. It was a phenomenal time to be an artist.
So when did you put down the spray paint and pick up the microphone?
So I never was good with spray paint. I always carried a marker. I was a kid who bombed.
Right.
My hand skills were terrible. But I started rhyming in 1981. But I was told, I remember one time I tried to grab the mic in the middle of a cipher, and this dude who I grew up with was like, "You can't do that, bro. This is black music. You should be a spectator, not a participator." And I was told that, and I was around a lot of dudes in the projects because that's who I grew up around. So I thought there was a level of acceptance, that I had that I didn't think a lot of the people of my color had.
Right.
But I was told really early, yeah, nah, B, that's not happening. So I would write in my room. And because of the influences I had around the artists that I was around, because, I went to high school with Slick Rick, I went to high school with David Dane, I went to high school with Born Unique and J. Cool from the Fresh 3 MCs. I went to high school with, a lot of people that became talented MCs later on.
Right.
Those influences were really heavy on my writing. So I would just write rhymes about anything. I wrote rhymes about when Villanova beat Georgetown. Georgetown goes down. I made rhymes about girls I liked. I made rhymes about girls that dissed me. My first record was called Melissa, about a girl that dissed me because she really did diss me, and her name was Melissa.
My first rap was about a fight at the school.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you wrote what you knew, and you wrote what you experienced. It was a direct correlation. 1 and 2. And I remember one time I was just with my boys, and they were all freestyling, and they knew I wrote, and my man was like, "Yo, bust a rhyme." And they already knew me as Serch because that's what I was writing. They were like, "Yo, bust a rhyme," and I did, and I remembered their looks on their face, and another dude was like, "Nah, bust another one."
Right.
So I bust another rhyme, and they were like, they started bugging out because they were like, yo, this kid is nice.
Hey, it was,
and I'm gonna be complete, yeah.
Yeah, nobody had said anything like that at the time.
Right.
And then, I'm gonna be completely honest. Then we were just, because we were smoking and drinking and whatever, and young and hanging out in my man's house, and I just never forget. Like my man just said something to me, and I just started dissing him off the top of my head. And I said something crazy. Like I said something like, because he was wearing a nameplate around his neck, and I knew where he made the nameplate. So I was like, "Yo," I said something. Yo, you ain't hip hop wearing that nameplate. You made a metal shop. And everybody, they were like, "Yo, when did you write that?" I was like, "What do you mean write that? I just said that right now." Like it was unfathomable that you could rhyme off the top of your head. No one was doing that.
Oh, word.
So that's when my man was like, "Yo, can you do that?" Like, and he was like, "Yo," and he pointed at his man. And then they started banging on the table. Somebody started beatboxing, and he started pointing to his man. He's like, "Yo, rhyme about what he got on." So I did. I started rhyming what he got on. And that's when I knew, like, I had a skill set that a lot of people didn't have that I could rhyme off the top of my head. And I could just rhyme for days off the top of my head. Word. And that's when my man Math and my mother man Undie, he was like, "Yo, I got an idea." And now we are all like, I don't know, 17, 18 or something. And my boys were just, they were doing their little dirt, going through projects all through Brooklyn and, selling their little dime bags or whatever. And every project had a dude that could rhyme.
Right.
Like there wasn't not a single project in the 5 boroughs that didn't have the nicest MC on their block that could rhyme. Every project in New York had a DJ who had a setup and the MC as part of that setup.
Right.
It's just what it was.
At least one.
So my man,
right.
I'm sorry?
At least one.
At least one. No. But I always say the one because there was always one that was the best. In any project, there was always one that was the best.
Yeah, standing on top of everybody else.
Yeah, right. Like Vandermeer had this blind kid named Wizard Wiz. He could play the piano like Stevie Wonder, and he could rhyme his ass off. He sounded like Ecstasy from Houdini.
Wow.
And he even had he had this rhyme that was like, "Yo, I know something about my girl, some she's so some whatever." He's like, "Y'all get to look, but I get to touch." Like dope, like really fly shit. Like he said some real fly shit. Like that was him. And then Lafayette Gardens had their dopest MC, and like this project, and then every place had it. So my man, wherever they would sell their little dime bags or whatever, they'd be like, "Yo, I'm gonna bring my man to battle you next week. My man MC Serch, he's gonna battle you." Right? And now these are all the drug dealers and all the hustlers, and so there's money, right? And they would purposely set up the battles near the train station.
So you get away if it go bad.
So I would come up. Well, 2 reasons, right? One is I would come up the stairs, and obviously it's not like Uber where you knew what time, but I knew the train schedule. So they were like, "Yo, you make sure you catch 4:12, so you get off at Kingston Troop at 4:47. Means you be coming up the stairs at blah blah blah." We didn't have phones, no beepers. We had to live by the rules of the trains, right?
Right.
So the train got stuck, whatever, I was stuck. But what would happen is, so there'd be a cypher of people. I would come up the stairs, and as soon as they saw me, first of all, I'm a fish out of water because I'm a white boy in Brooklyn coming off the train.
Right.
So they're not even expecting me to be there in the first place. And when my man says, "Oh, that's Serch," everybody thought they're about to hit a lick. So if they were betting $5 and $10, by the moment they saw me, the bets were up to 20, 25, 30 ahead. Not knowing what they were about to walk into. So I walk in there looking like I'm looking. I have a big-ass Jew-fro. I mean, Cap knows what I used to look like. I got a big Jew-fro and, like, looking crazy, wild, 18 years old. And all these guys are, whatever. I get into the middle of cypher, and it's always home team first. I always start this run. So when used to battle back in the 80s, like, dudes didn't come off top of their head. They always had pre-written rhymes.
Right.
So anything he's saying is just fly for the sake of it being fly. Right? So what I would do is let the guy go first, and he would go first, and, whatever bars he kicked, and I would just be watching. And then my first rhyme was always the same. I would attack you, what you wore, what you had on, so that you knew, like, I'm present. I'm in the now. Ain't nothing I'm saying pre-written, because how would it be pre-written if I know exactly what you're wearing? I never met you in your life.
Right. Right. That's Roxanne Shante used to kill it like that.
Yeah, so now I'm just teeing you up. And now everybody's shook.
Mm-hmm.
And all the money's getting shook. But also all the ratchet boys, they're getting their hands on their pistols. Because they know what they just bet. And my man's holding all the money.
Wow.
So now the second rhyme comes, and now dude's shook. Right? But he's got a little confidence because, what am I going to rhyme about now? Right? Because I already rhymed about what he had on.
Right.
And now he kicks the second rhyme. Right? And everybody's like, oh, and everybody knows that's his dopest verse. His freshest verse. Right? So what I would do, I would really be listening. Like sometimes I'd be really orchestrated. I'd like hold my ear to like close so I could hear him. Right?
Right.
Because my next verse was I'd pick apart his rhyme and tell him what he did wrong, what he should have said better.
Oh, right.
And it's fucking over. And it was over. As soon as even the dudes in the cipher knew he just got served. Because I'm beating you with your own words.
Yeah.
I'm
Serch, I got a question for you. Because
let me just finish this one thing.
Sure.
So then the third reason near the train is as soon as I got my money, I had to dip. Because the ratchet boys came out, they trying to get their bread. And they're not going to mess with math and understanding because they're the plug.
Right.
So now I got my bread, so I dipped down through the train and through the train track so I wouldn't get robbed. So
Smart.
that was it. Anyway.
That's smart.
I'm sorry, it just took me somewhere because our podcast looks to educate our listeners. So my question is, because I've seen in my time a lot of battle rappers that didn't necessarily make hits, but you were battle rapping and you made hits. Like how did you mesh that together? And I think that's an important question because we still see it today where a battle rapper, and I'm not saying all of them can't make a hit, but it seems like they don't have that hit in them.
That's a great question. So, and I actually just met a female MC that's incredible from Detroit, and she just writes bars for days and has no song structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that I had going for me is I went to music and art high school, and which then became LaGuardia School of the Arts. So I knew song structure. I knew what a bar, a verse, a bar, a coda. I knew song structure. So I knew how to orchestrate, even if it was a song, even if it was a rap record, I knew how to orchestrate bars and verses. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the important thing was that I had a basic understanding of how I wanted the song to feel even before I even wrote it, because I thought chorus first because of my music background. So even though I could battle you, I still had a song sensibility in the back of my head. I had an education in understanding song structure. And I knew what the circle of fifths were, and I knew what the scales were, and I knew how to write something in a certain melody. And, so it was really the benefit of my high school education that allowed me to write songs and be able to be a creative on that side. I think on top of that, when I was working on my solo project before I met Pete Nice and before we put Third Base together, song structure was also really critical in how like Russell and Lior would talk to me about song structure. Because I was signed to Rush Management way before Third Base was ever signed to Def Jam. I was already signed as a solo artist to Rush. Mm-hmm. So working with like Houdini on Be Yourself with Millie Jackson and watching them like understand song structure.
Whoa,
right?
I'm sorry. You can't just pass by Millie Jackson like that, though.
Be yourself.
Millie Jackson?
That's around 89, 90, right?
88. Yeah, 87, 88.
87,
yeah.
88. Yeah. That was the second, third. No, Houdini had mad albums before.
That was the fourth. That was the fourth album. Yeah, it was the fourth album. Right after the One Love album. Yeah.
Houdini, man.
Yeah. So I wrote that line that everyone loves that Ecstasy said, before you find yourself by yourself with no one to blame besides yourself, so be yourself.
Oh,
so like we were all in the studio, writing that record, and I wrote a whole verse, and Ecstasy was like, yo, I like that one line, so I'm going to take that one line. But, I was around a lot, even on early on, like with Tila Rock, and being on Lyrical King with Greg Nice and just watching him, song structure. Like I was around a lot of people that were all about song structure.
Right.
and that you can't rhyme forever. You know, Tony D would say that to me all the time. Like, you can't do a rap record with 170 like just rhymes. Like, you gotta think about breaking it up. You know.
Right.
So song structure was always really important.
Right. Yeah. Your School of the Arts to prepare you for that. I was a band kid. I played the trumpet. I used all that stuff I learned about song structure when I'm mixing.
Right.
Yeah, use it all the time.
That's dope.
Yeah, and I love, and just as a quick pivot, I mean, that's why every year, as much as I can, I try to support Hootie and the Blowfish and Monday After the Masters and the money they raise for Carolina music education, because I really do believe that music education is not just about music. It's really deeper than that. And if people who are the purse holders at education would understand that music education helps in, physical, it helps with math, it helps with science, because there's got to be an understanding of all of those things in music theory, right?
Right. It's
and if
all
we
numbers.
Music, right. And if we remove music, scales, all of that, you're removing a really key component to the left side of the brain, and how it manages creativity with structure.
Right.
Because, there's a lot of places that they're so worried about industrial jobs. Like, I was just hearing Mark Cuban talk about this. Like, with AI, like, do you know how many, like, industrial jobs we're going to lose in this country? Engineering, technical jobs to AI?
Indeed.
Because AI is going to be able to just basically manage, orchestrate, curate, produce, run the line. So where does that leave us? Like, kids are better off having in the next 10 years, this is what Mark Cuban was saying, you're better off having a liberal arts degree than you are an engineering degree. Because in 10 years, AI is going to remove that opportunity for most people.
America's going to be a tourist site.
I think journalism's going to suffer too.
But yeah,
already.
It's already. But once you look at liberal arts, right, it gives you such a wide breadth of things you can do, because the creative mind is really what's going to be needed as a resource. Because it's one thing that AI cannot really duplicate. It can emulate. It can't really duplicate. It can't duplicate the creative genius of the mind and the brain. And if we can find a way to create liberal arts programs that are expansive and give young men and women, young people, the identity of looking outside of a more tactile, mathematical, engineering degree, I think that's going to be more in need than anything else. And I'm not saying that I think Mark Cuban is right on the button when he says that.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, I'm going to be down in Myrtle Beach soon, tearing it down with my boys, Hootie and the Blowfish, and just doing my thing.
Hey, that's what's up. Hey, tell me this. You mentioned having a solo deal with Def Jam before Third Base.
No, I had a solo. No. I was.
Not Def Jam,
Management.
Rush Management. I'm sorry. I tend to associate
it's
everything
okay. Yeah,
Russell Simmons with.
Right.
Russell Simmons is so busy.
Right.
How do you end up, first of all, how'd you end up transitioning into a group, and how'd you feel about that, knowing that you were on your way as a solo artist?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So when I signed to Rush, I signed to Rush with the idea that I was going to work on a demo and I was going to sign some deal somewhere as a solo artist, right? I think the idea was I go to A&M, or they were going to get me to A&M because the guy who did the Def Jam deal at CBS originally, a guy named Steve Rabowski, became the head of A&M, right? So originally I was signed to Rush Management as a solo artist because I had a big buzz in New York. Like, I was performing everywhere, and Leo and Russell just saw the vision. They didn't know exactly what they were going to do with me, but they knew that, like, I could do something.
Right.
I'd already been writing songs for other artists. Like, I was doing some ghostwriting. So, like, they knew So when the idea came to, and Dante Ross, the famed A&R guy, hooked me up with a producer named Sam Sever. So I was working on my demo. One of those songs being Product of the Environment, and couple other songs that I don't really remember.
That was dope.
So the idea was originally I was going to go to A&M, or at least, submit my demo to A&M. And then I found out A&M was coming to see me. That Steve Rabowski was flying in from LA to New York to come to the studio and talk to me about my vision as an artist. And the night before Steve Rabowski comes to see me, I get a call from Sam, and he tells me this whole thing about, how he met this kid, Pete Nice. And I knew about Pete because Pete had a college radio show, WKCR, at Columbia University with Clark Kent. And Clark Kent was my man. Like, I'd be in Clark's basement all the time watching him DJ and eating oxtails with his mom. You know what I mean? Like, we were boys.
Right.
So I knew who Pete was, but I didn't really know Pete as an MC. And then I heard he was in a group that was going to get signed to Select, and didn't happen, and all this stuff. But I knew of him. And Sam told me that him and Pete worked on music together. And when I heard the record that they worked on, that record became Words of Wisdom.
Okay.
And I, in my own mind, because it was so refreshing and so different and so new and felt so good, I was like, you know what? Why don't we just introduce Steve Rabowski to Three the Hard Way? I literally just threw the name out. Like, let's just be Three the Hard Way. Sam, it'll be you, me, and Pete with Three the Hard Way.
Right.
Let's just introduce him. Now, mind you, this dude is coming from LA, heard all of my demos, and is interested in signing me and a kid out of Houston named Raheem. Right?
Oh, I remember
Those
Raheem.
Are the two artists. Right. Those are the two artists that he wanted to sign. And he comes into the studio, Chung King, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not MC Serch anymore. It's a group called Three the Hard Way. It's me, this guy. And I play them Words of Wisdom. I play them a remix version of Product of the Environment with Pete's verse on it. Like, and we were like, yo, and these shits were movies. At least to us, they sounded amazing. And Rabowski says, kind of feels like the Beastie Boys all over again. And obviously the Beastie Boys were huge, but we didn't sound nothing like the Beastie Boys. It was, Beastie Boys were the Beastie Boys, and we were not the Beastie Boys.
Right, not at all.
They're doing We Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party, and I think he's hearing like the guitars of the bam, 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 the Depeche Mode sample and the Smith sample and in Words of Wisdom, and he's hearing Product of the Environment, which just got like mad like guitar samples. So maybe he thought that we were trying to be an offshoot, which we weren't. We were like real street MCs from like the 5 boroughs of New York.
Right. Let me pause you for a second, because I did, I wrote down in my notes, one of the things that I wanted to mention was I was impressed by the scope of the samples that y'all used back in the day. Like, being, a musical guy, I appreciated the range y'all had in your samples, put it like that.
Oh, thank you, bro. I appreciate. We were digging deep. I thought that a lot of the things that we discovered were really soulful music and had a lot of heart to it. And I thought that if we added components to hip hop, like I thought Spinning Wheel was like a soulful ass record. Right. That like I thought that shit was fire. You know what I mean? Like and most people might have thought of it as a country record or a country crossover record. Like, I just thought that shit was funky. Like, same thing with the Smiths, like Meat is Murder and The Queen is Dead, like all those records, like them shit's hard.
Yeah. Like,
they went hard. And like, even to this day, like I'm working on a new project and I'm sampling like Tame Impala and Radiohead and Tom York and Tennis. And I'm like, yo, these records are funky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to go outside of what people would normally look at. And there's nothing wrong with, like, even these kids today, like, sampling the records from the 90s and the 2000s, the R&B records that we came up with, whether that's Case or Tank or whoever. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's dope that they're going there. I think it's great. Donnell Jones, Kate, great. That's what we did when we were sampling, Earth, Wind, and Fire and Frankie Beverly and Maze. So it's just recycling itself. But for me, we were so diverse because we listened to so much music in New York that I wasn't going to be locked into just one type of music when I could sample everything. And that's literally how we felt. We felt like there was no rules to this game. We could sample everything. And we did. And we did all that. So he says like, kind of feels like, I don't get the group thing. Kind of feels like, a Beastie Boy thing, but let me think about it. Right. So he bounces out. We're in the studio. We keep working. And Lior calls me and loses his mind on me. Like loses his mind. Tells me I'm kicked out of the studio. I'm kicked off of Rush. He quits. He's firing me. Like just all this crazy shit. Like even to the point where he called my mother, may she rest in peace. My mother called the studio and was like, "What's wrong with you? You had a record deal. He set it up. Why can't Pete Nice be like Flavor Flav?" I'm like, "Mom, you don't even know who Flavor Flav is. Like, what are you talking about? Like, Pete Nice be Flavor Flav? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the group." And obviously, rest is history. A&M signed Raheem, and Pete and I spent another 18 months unsigned. And then we wound up signing the Def Jam. And this year, November, will be 35 years since the Cactus album came out.
I'm gonna tell you something that a lot of people don't know. This will hit home for my man DL. I used to cut hair back in the day, and when y'all dropped that video for Step Into the AM, and they showed the back of your haircut, that was the inspiration. I started hooking people's heads up in that style. I got paid off that for like the next 3 or 4 years.
Love that. Good for you.
Straight up. That's like, and for everybody, there are a lot of people that knew me as a barber way before a DJ. Like I was a hood barber.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Carport.
I would be under the garage cutting hair all day, every day.
Hey.
And yeah, man, when I saw that haircut with the third base emblem in the back, I said, "Oh!" And I went home and I started practicing on people. And
I need to see some of them cuts. I know you got photos, bro.
You know what?
See some of them photos, Brody.
You know what's wild? I did that from 87, 88, all the way to 92, and I don't have one photo of a haircut. But what I did was I cut my son's hair when he was a little boy. I wrote his name in there and hooked it up and took a picture of that. So I'm gonna show you. Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, 'cause you had a camera phone.
I definitely need to see that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yep, but the inspiration was your haircut. That was the first time I had seen it chopped up like that. That was, that was dope. That was dope, man.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yes,
I appreciate
indeed.
that. That means a lot. Coming from you, that means a lot.
Hey, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do to everybody's head. I could put anything back there. I was like, what? A canvas on the back of your neck?
Right.
I'll take it.
Hey, sir,
Well played, sir. Well played.
You said that means a lot coming from Cap. Could you come sidestep for a second
so much,
and tell?
like me and Cap have so much friendship.
Mm-hmm.
We have so much history and so much friendship. Like, and I was thinking about this, and actually I spoke to my homeboy. He was like, "Yo, you should not tell this story." I'm like, "Of course I'm gonna tell the story. I don't care." Mm-hmm. So I grew up around black people my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Period. It's just what it is. You're either black or Jewish. That was it, right?
Oh, okay.
I got called the N-word in my circle all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. That's just what my people called me. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in around 93, 94, I was talking to Cap. No. Yeah, it was like 90. Yeah, it was 94. I remember exactly what it was. I just put out the OC record. I called Cap from my office, and I was talking to him about OC and Word Life. And I got a little comfortable. And I said the N-word because I was thinking about being around my boys, and he's around,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm maybe it was later. Oh, no, it was with CC, bro. So it was like 97, 98. Yeah, it was when I had Serch.
CC Smooth.
Right, CC Smooth. Right, it was with CC. I was working in OC Records. I was working Joel. And, I got comfortable. And it's just the N-word slipped out when I was talking to him about, my people.
Mm-hmm.
He got mad quiet. And he said, yo, Serch, you can't use that word around me. I don't care how cool we are. Don't ever use that word around me ever again. And to this day, because of that, I don't ever use that word ever.
Dope.
Ever. Around my people, nope, ever.
Wow.
Ever. He called me slipping, one done.
You know what's interesting about that? I remember when you had the show, looking for, you remember the what was it? Like
the White Rapper Show.
The White Rapper Show, and I remember one of the girls you gave her.
Rachel.
I remember you talked to her about that, and I thought about that moment when you were talking to her on the show.
That's dope.
And you know what's crazy? I'll tell you something crazy. So the behind the scenes is this girl Persia on the show used the N-word because she's affiliated from Far Rockaway, very similar Italian girl. She ain't Jewish, but grew up in the hood like I grew up in the hood. She's comfortable. She got a little too comfortable. And the dude on the show said, hey, I don't want you using that word. It's offensive. Because he's liberal.
Right.
And she said something crazy. She was like, well, there ain't no doors here, so, you mind your business, or something like that. Right? So they had already planned this whole thing with this chain that said the N-word on it, right, in case somebody got a little too comfortable. And everybody in Ego Trip knows me. Like, knows me. Sasha, Elliot Wilson, Gabe Acevedo, Brent Rollins. That's the core of Ego Trip. That's the guys who did the show.
Right.
And they're talking to me about what happened that night as I'm getting on set. And they're telling me about how I'm going to present the chain and how it's not right. Even like people like me don't use the N-word. And my wife is like, nah, he uses the N-word all the time. And everybody got quiet and they were like, well, how about he doesn't use the N-word on the show? And that's why we were able to do what we did. And that's why I said what I said. And of course, like heads that know me were like, yo, you're full of shit, money. We know you, right?
Right.
Because my people, but outside the world, like outside maybe 20 heads, like people don't know me like that. And now we're doing a show in front of 15, 18 million people.
Right.
So it was easy to convey that message. But Persia found out later when she went to Far Rockaway, she was like, yo, Serch using that word all the time. Fuck out of here. But because of Cap, and that what's true is that from that moment, 1997, word never came across my mouth ever again. Now, if I'm using it as an example of somebody said something to me,
right,
then I'm using it like a lyric in a movie or a lyric in a whatever, and it's an example and it's direct, and then I'll use it as that example, but I usually will just say N-word instead. But that's a direct result from Cap. Because I never wanted people to think that I'm using it with the inflection to cause harm or intent to cause harm and be disrespectful. Because that's not how it was ever used around me.
Yeah, I understand. I've known plenty of people from up north that have different contexts, but I'm from the South.
No, you're from the South.
Yeah.
And trust me, my sensitivity from it is really heightened because my mother marched with Martin Luther King. My mother spent more time in Selma during the civil rights movement than she did in Far Rockaway. So I understood the sensitivity of the word, but like by the time I was 13, 14, the ER got dropped to an A at the end of the word. And even now to this day, like I'm still shocked. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, I'm still shocked. I was in a store the other day and this kid, white, long hair, country kid, he's talking to his man in CVS using the word every other word.
Right.
And what did KRS say? Now we got white boys calling each other
Right.
So the thing is this, and I want you to think about this because you're two intelligent brothers. We are now 50 years into hip hop, right?
Right.
Of those 50 years, how many generations of white kids have heard artists use the N-word? And how many rap fans are white that purchase the music?
it's crazy because you answered my question. My question was going to be, how do you feel about artists using the word, since you had your moment where you stopped using the word, but you just answered that question.
88% of the audience is white.
Absolutely. It might be higher than that.
So
actually,
how can you not expect them when somebody else is calling them that in loving endearment and affection, right? To not use it. So have we basically silenced the word and replaced it with something, another meaning?
Well,
or does it still have the same meaning, right?
I think for a younger generation,
that's what I was going to say.
It doesn't resonate the same way as it does. The older you are, the more it resonates as hateful or disrespectful.
Right.
But the younger you are, I don't think they think about it as much.
Because it has no impact on them.
Yeah, it holds no power.
One is putting a gun in their face saying "die" and "word die."
Right.
It doesn't have power.
Look, it doesn't have the power anymore, and it's been neutralized. It hasn't been arrested. It's been neutralized by the fact that the music allows it to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite episodes, I don't know if you guys remember a show called Scrubs.
Yeah.
It was about nurses.
Yeah.
It had the reason I fell in love with the show is the very first episode, the very first 3 minutes. Donald Faison and Jax, what is the white guy? Zach something, who is the
with the
Donald
black,
Faison
with
the black dude, and his name is Zach something. They're getting out of the car because they're roommates in a house, and the first scene in this show in Scrubs is the white guy, Zach Braff. Zach Braff is getting out of the car talking to Donald Faison, and he's saying, "So you mean to tell me that even if I'm in my car and I'm listening to the song and the word comes on, I can't even say it in the car?" And he's like, "No, you can't ever say the N-word, ever." And I'm like, oh my God, if this show is talking about this, I'm in. Because it became something culturally connected, I connected to immediately as a white guy who loved hip-hop, who was ingrained in the culture.
Right.
Because it was something that was a natural conversation that a lot of us had, and a lot of us looked at people suspect, right? Like, yeah, he can't be really real. He's white. Like, how real could he really be? He's white. Like, what does he really know? He's white. Right? So that became, for me, a big part of also my identity is like, I wanted to protect the culture from culture vultures. But it wasn't my job. And I took that job a little too seriously. And I wound up alienating a lot of people because of that.
Right.
Because it wasn't my job. Right. My job was to make music. My job was to just do what I do. I don't have to prove to you how real I am because I'm protecting you from the vanilla ice of the world. If you don't want to be protected from the vanilla ice, that's on you. But I felt that because my ghetto pass was literally handed to me by the elders of this culture, it was my job to protect it.
Mm-hmm. And I can say as a DJ and a person who's enjoyed hip hop for my entire life, you're the one that everybody took seriously.
Yes.
That's the way I could put it. Like, you had the Beastie Boys, they made dope music, but you didn't take them seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You didn't take Vanilla Ice seriously. But we took MC Serch seriously.
And we from down south.
Yeah. And I think Third Base was taken seriously too.
Third Base was definitely taken seriously.
Absolutely.
The thing that was really interesting to me, and I'll this is just my perspective in terms of growth, right? I have literal footage, and it's on YouTube. You can find it, of LL Cool J dissing the Beastie Boys, saying that what they're doing on tour is disrespectful with these giant inflatable penises and pouring beers on people, and they're making it harder for black artists to go on tours, arena tours, because they're making a mockery of hip-hop.
Damn.
And he's the same person introducing them into the Hip-Hop Hall of Fame. I'm sorry, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Right? So is the growth because they became accepted, or the growth because they became so accepted that your argument no longer has weight, right? Like for me, I learned to love those guys because we became friends. I still don't really fuck with a lot of Beastie Boy records. I fuck with Hold It Now, Hit It, because that record, I was mad, I was jelly. Like that record would come on in the Latin Quarter and my record wouldn't. And girls would start wilding and doing a wop, and I'm mad. I'm tight. I'm tight.
Hey,
I'm a chill ill will when I start chilling. I'm a fill my pocket with $9 bills. 7 ounce bills with the window sill. When I get my fill, I'm chilly chill. Yo, I just got home because I'm out on bail.
What's the time?
Time to buy L. Yo, that was. You know how many times my man went to C-76 and we would wait for him at Port Authority because he came out on bail?
Oh, my goodness.
And then we would when we go get a 40, they were talking the life. And then they pivoted.
Right.
And we all felt like, damn, they just used hip-hop as a pit stop.
But that Paul's Boutique was pretty good, too. Yeah. Yeah, but you know, I don't think that's what that's why we took Third Base more seriously.
Right.
You kind of knew that when you listened to the album, even as a hip hop was on record and on the radio was very young at that point, and you knew as a consumer that what you were hearing, that it wasn't true. It didn't feel like hip hop artists making hip hop,
right? But
it was hip hop music,
right?
And
the community embraced it.
But you knew that they could be gone in a flash. You know, you just knew it. As soon as I heard "Fight for Your Right to Party," I was like, okay, they got other stuff. This could possibly be. I didn't expect the Beastie Boys to be relevant,
right,
on the b-boy scene,
right,
for a long time. Just from
and Paul's Boutique, you know, again, like all those records, Check Your Head and all that. Like,
Paul's Boutique was dope, man. The sample scope on that thing was like I could listen to Paul's Boutique, but the problem was that, you know, there was no hit record on there,
right?
It was a good listening experience,
right?
Yeah, no, and look, I really do see the course of my career from a perspective of this feeling like I was, you know, the sword and the shield to protect hip hop, is like, I kind of like really, I needed to relax, because I really did alienate a lot of people, and I really didn't befriend a lot of people that I should have, right? That I could have built really close rapport with. And what happened was, I think a lot of people, it turned a lot of people off. And it turned a lot of people. So I just focused on what I had to do for me. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, my wife, because I was married already at the time, and my wife and I were about to have our first child, you know, she was like, well, you know, you're not going to be on the road anymore. You got to figure out what's next. So, you know, signing OC and working on Word Life, his album, and signing Nas, and working on Illmatic, and, you know, getting the job at Wild Pitch, and starting to talk to Cap, and starting to talk to like Ebro when he worked at KSFM in San Francisco, and Tech and Sway when they were at KMEL in San Francisco, and like talking to Prince Ice, who, you know, still in Colombia. You know what I mean? Like we were just making friends at radio because we all had this one thing in common. Because if I went to call Cap J about a record, whether it was my record or somebody else's, the first thing I'd say to him was like, yo, what you listening to? What's popping in the clubs?
Right.
What's going on?
Right.
Like, I want to know everything. And he'd be like, oh, at the Edge, yo, I was playing the Edge Thursday night. They love this record, but then I play this club. And this club, yo, that's the joint at this club.
Right.
And you'd learn that, like, even in like Raleigh, or even in Charlotte, or even in like Wake Forest, or wherever, like anywhere down that corridor, Fayetteville, like
Greensboro,
3 or 4 clubs, Greensboro, you'd have Columbia, you'd have 3 or 4 little clubs, and all 3 of those clubs would have maybe 1 or 2 records that were similar, and then 3 or 4 records that each DJ was uniquely breaking on their own.
Right. Right. That's
and it was
real.
like, okay, that's Blase Splee's record. Oh, Prince Ice, he's running with Blase Splee. So I'm not touching Blase Splee. I'm gonna go with this.
Right.
So like, it really became the one thing. Like when I got Nas, when I got Halftime, I sent it to Cap first. I remember sending it to Cap first because I wanted that to be his thing. I wanted him to have the hottest record because I knew what Nas was going to be.
Right.
You know
That's dope.
It ain't hard to tell. Sent it to Cap first.
Right.
That remix was insane, yo.
You know what I'm saying?
But
so
you know what?
really,
I think during that time period, I was staying with K Nice. So me and K Nice were together, and K Nice was the one on the radio, and I was getting the spinoffs. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everything you sent to K Nice.
Yeah,
I was
never
always.
talked to K-Nice. I spoke to you more than I spoke to K-Nice.
Yeah. We spoke more, definitely.
Yeah,
but K Nice was on jams before I was.
that's right.
And he brought me in the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I love K-Nice, but he was feeling himself back then, and he had every right to. It was, it was what it was.
Yeah, he had the Carolinas on lock.
Yeah, without question. Without question, you had to go through him.
But that remix of It Ain't Hard to Tell, though. Like, I remember when you shipped that out. I still got the white label, like, right now.
Yeah, the white label,
Yes.
Man.
Nas is the king of disco. And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah, Large Professor killed it.
Oh.
I mean, he really, that highly recognized as the king of disco. And, like, he really chopped that sample.
That was quality work right there, man.
Hey,
yeah, it really was, man.
I got a question relating to sampling. Like, how did it work back then? And then, because you're still actively sampling now, how does it work now?
In terms of what? Can you be more specific if you don't mind me asking?
As far as the business, because nowadays I hear about artists who are saying that certain tracks can't come out because they didn't clear the sample, or we had to pay this amount to clear the sample. Has it always been that way, or...
Yeah. Tell us about that transition, because there's certain albums that couldn't be made today because it would cost so much. And before Biz Markie got hit on that I Need a Haircut album, like, it was kind of like free reign back in the day, and then it got expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what? I want to this is just my perspective. So I think early on, right, the idea of sampling was like the Wild West. No one really knew except the basics, which was if you used a sample, there were 2 parts you had to clear. One was what's called the mechanical license, which is the physical label owns a piece of it, and the other part is the publishing, and that could be a separate entity. For example, Nas was signed to Sony, but his publishing was at Zamba. So if you wanted, like the Jay-Z, if you wanted to clear Dead Presidents, I'm out for presidents to represent me, there were 2 pockets. One was going to Sony to get the clearance from them, Columbia. The other part was Zamba. So because I was the executive producer of the album, I could do both. Right? Most of the time, though, you had to go to 2 different pockets. And that's when it got expensive. Because the people who own the original recording would be like, yeah, we need to get paid. And the publisher would be like, yeah, we need to get paid, right? What happened in about 1995, 1996 was a company came around called Sample Clearance Limited, a guy named Danny Rubin. Real smart guy. He said, you know what? I'm going to create a precedent where we're going to just push what's called a flat rate. Whether you sample 4 minutes, 4 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever the controlled composition is, which is the original recording,
right?
You're going to take 30% to 50%, and the label's going to take 5 to 10% or something, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever that was. And it worked. Like, all of a sudden, Danny Rubin and Sample Clearance Limited, they were doing everybody because they had this tap in. But what happened was then the labels were like, wait a minute. They got too much control. Why don't we kind of convince them to come on our side and sweeten the pot for us? So they started collecting retainers from the labels to represent the labels against the artists. So that just tilted the scales, right? Nowadays, if you want to clear a sample, it's all digital. So what does that mean? You can go to any website, right? So let's say you sample, let me think, SZA, right? So SZA's on RCA. You can go to RCA.com and you can go in, and under the menu, there's publishers and record recording and sample clearances. And there's a form. You submit your music, you submit the sample, you submit where the original recording's from, you submit as much of the publishing information, and you press submit. It goes to somebody, they clear it, they come back to you and say, this is what it's going to be, yes or no. And that's it. It's now 100% automated.
Oh, wow.
When somebody says, oh, I couldn't clear the sample, that's basically because what they're saying is, I don't know the person at the label and they never responded to my email, so I can't clear the record, right? The other side of it now is still because of SoundCloud, which is the smartest way to do this, is if you got a new artist and new record, you'll put it out. Because if the record blows up, label ain't going to stop you. They're just going to want their piece.
Right.
And all they're going to say is, hey, you got our record, let's make a deal. And what they're going to do is they're going to freeze you from getting any more money temporarily until you figure out what your splits are. You'll pay a penalty, but then you'll be able to make an equitable deal and everybody eats.
Right, right.
So I always say to artists, put out music. It's always better to ask for forgiveness and permission when you're
Hey,
Facts.
you know what? That's I work for Brian Douglas over there at 102 Jams, and that's what he would always tell me. And I thought that was surprising because I'd be like, "Hey, I want to do such and such." He's like, "Well, Cap, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission." And this is my program director telling me.
Yeah, Brian is, and he's always been a great. Brian's one of those guys that to the record labels he was the worst. But to his people, he was the best.
Yeah, yeah.
I would rather sell my third child to slavery than to have to work him on a record.
Yeah.
But I would rather work for him than any other program director besides KJ Holiday, may he rest in peace.
Oh, I didn't know KJ Holiday passed away.
10 years ago, bro. 15 years
Oh, my goodness.
Ago. Yeah, rest in peace, KJ. So, yeah, because KJ gave me my start in radio. And it was, the same thing, man. There's like certain guys that you knew they treated their people amazing, and the labels couldn't stand them.
Right.
Couldn't stand them. I can't tell you how many guys, bro, I worked that I would have to show up. I'm not going to mention no names, but when I transitioned to executive, the one thing I was really good at was radio promotion. Why? Because the guy who taught me the game, Wes Johnson, may he rest in peace, made it real clear to me from the door. The same way my boys made it real clear to me at my first cipher. He said to me, Serch, let me tell you something, you little white motherfucker. If I'm going to have to tell a black programmer that a black record can't be on a black chart because of your white ass, you better know all them black motherfuckers forward and backwards. He said it point blank like that, and I was scared out of my mind. And he threw a radio records at me and a billboard. He said, we're going on the road in 6 weeks. Study. Ain't no Google. Ain't no internet. New York Public Library. Dewey Decimal System. Looking at people's names. So I always, and I don't like to use finite terms, but I will use it here. I always respected every single person at radio, from the intern to the OM, because I knew the blessing that it was for not only me to be in the building, not only for my own music, but to be in the building to talk about other artists' music.
I can vouch for that.
Seriously.
Yeah. I can vouch for that. I was on the receiving end and I saw it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So it was really important. And a lot of these guys, I'll tell you a great story. When I used to go to the biggest markets, New York, LA, and I did this in all the other markets, but the biggest markets, right? When you have an artist, you go to the biggest markets, they would focus on three people: the program director, the music director, and whoever the biggest mixer was. That was it.
Right.
If I had Nas go to Power 106, he met with whoever the program director was, whether that was Bruce St. James, and he met with E-Man, who was the head of all the mixes, and then we meet with, Jimmy Steele or Rick Cummings, right? That was it. I was like, nah, bump that. I said, Nas, when we go in here, we're meeting with everybody, and we're having lunch for all the interns. We're giving them everything. You're going to walk in here, you're going to ball out, we're going to ball till we fall, we're going to treat everyone to food. We're going to walk in with plates of food. Why? Interns don't eat. Interns don't sleep in radio.
But they also turn into program directors.
That part. So
that
let me tell you a
part.
story. I'm going to tell you that part. So let me tell you an amazing story. Because I did this for years and 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 years. Even to this day, we're still working records. To this day, 30 years later. I go to Power, and I'm doing my intern. Then E-Man knew it. It was like, it's called the intern brunch. I'm doing the intern brunch, and there's a young man, and we're all walking out. And I would ask them all, hey, does anybody need a cab ride home? I don't want y'all taking the bus. It's late, right? So we would get cabs or we would get car services. And there's this one dude, and he was like, no, I'm good. I'm like, no, I'm good. Okay, cool. Do you need anything? No, I'm good. He lived in his car.
Oh, wow.
He literally gave his life to the station, lived in his car. So I found out he lived in his car, and for a month, I paid for like food, I paid for pizza, I paid whatever he wanted. He didn't even know it came from me. I just did it anonymously. I would just say, hey, this is for him. That guy became Pup Dog, who's now in charge of every mixer at iHeart. DJ Ayo and Pup Dog are the two people that are in charge of every mix DJ in all of iHeart.
Wow.
How much trouble do you think I have getting a record on the radio?
Right.
Because
Shout
he
out
reminded me, bro, he told me. I didn't remember. I came to work him a record in 2019 before the pandemic. And he saw me, he took me out to roast beef. And he said, bro, I'm the guy. I'm the homeless guy that was in the car. You took care of me. You fed me for a month.
Hey, that's
I'll
crazy.
never forget that.
That's crazy.
It's not what you do for people with the expectation to get it back. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right. And then the universe will give it back to you.
That part. So for me, all of this, even talking to you guys, having the blessing, like I lost two of my homeboys today. Like Frankie from Downtown Records, bro. Frankie is literally the epicenter of, like, what you had sounds familiar? Downtown Records was where we all went. And Frankie curated music. If DJ Jules from Nels came down there, he knew what record to point him to. If Fat Raul from Latin Quarter came in, he knew what record to. He was the original organic, natural integration specialist for music in New York. When mixtapes happened, whether you were Tony Toca, Camilo, every tape found a way on his wall.
No doubt. Eulogize that man. Yes.
He's a pillar of the music industry. And I posted it on my LinkedIn for all of y'all that like curate culture and yada yada. No, we lost two pillars of hip hop today.
Yeah,
Mr. C.
Mr. C is the other one. Yeah, that was shocking news.
We would not have Biggie if he did not find that kid on the corner and take his demo to the right people.
Right.
He was the one who curated some of the early Daddy Kane records.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on the radio in New York on every channel. He was the first one to blend R&B and hip hop on the radio.
Yep. Tomorrow, I sent a message in. It's like, tomorrow I'm dropping Mr. C's master plan. Just as a heads up.
Yo, bro,
right.
to be here in this moment to talk to Cap, to know that I can help support his AAU teams, to know that I can go and give him a hug when my best friend Kevin Amore died last year. It was the call I made to him right after I found out I was going. He was the next call. I'm going to see my funeral. I got to see you. That we have this blessing right now that we're able to do what we do today. Bro, come on, stop it. Yeah. Stop it. It's the gift that this culture gave me. It's the gift. And I'd be remiss if I didn't listen to people like Cap J who told me they were offended by my language the way I didn't, I listen to everyone because I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be selling shoes at Nordstrom. I'm supposed to be delivering pizza. This culture didn't allow me. There was no acceptance. I had to fight my way to get it. So to be here in this day and have the gratitude that I have and feel grateful and know that I can show my gratitude to you guys, to DL and to Cap, and to do this podcast and talk about this shit, like, yo, this is a blessing.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I got a question for you. when you say, you say you feel this great responsibility to protect hip hop culture, and it makes me think about the beef with MC Hammer. How did that start? And I want to say beef. I'm just gonna say, whatever it was. I know at the time a lot of people thought, the idea of MC Hammer is he's an outsider in this game. And when you say that you felt like you need to protect it, did that have anything to do with your feelings towards MC Hammer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell y'all a story that not a lot of people know. So I used to be, when I first got into the business and I first got discovered, I was a valet for Houdini. And one thing I will say about Ecstasy and Drew, Grandmaster D, and Jalil, may he rest in peace, Ecstasy, is that they had an incredible eye for talent. Because I was literally on the bus with Dr. Ice and UTFO when there were dancers, backup dancers for Houdini. Jermaine Dupri, who was a child backup dancer for Houdini.
Wow.
And me, and I was steaming clothes and ironing linen for the group. Right? That's literally who was on the bus. Before they ever said Roxanne, ever in a record, they were dancing for Houdini.
Right. I remember that. If any of the listeners want to see an example of that, watch the Freaks Come Out at Night video, and you'll see UTF on stage dancing behind Houdini, and you'll see Jermaine Dupri with his Jerry curl.
Yep, and dancing, and in a sheepskin, a little child-ass sheepskin, because he was 10 years old. Yo, they had an incredible eye for talent, and I was never in those videos because, I was in the back steaming clothes. But we were in Oakland, and we were at a basketball something, one of those charity basketball games. Hammer was known throughout the Bay Area because he was a bat boy for the Oakland A's, and he was selling tapes out of his trunk.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he had a Cadillac at the time. And he was maybe 20 years old. And I'm outside in the front being a typical New Yorker, talking mad cock out of people. Like not even caring what areas though. I'm New York. What? Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like we were really about that. Like we wasn't just talking it. We were about that. We didn't care where we're from, New York and what. Right? And I'm talking to this bunch of people outside and we're outside and I'm, one thing led to another and somebody asked me something about dancing. I started dancing. They start losing their mind. This one dude out of nowhere is like, yo, there's this dude out here, MC Hammer. Yeah, he's a dope dancer too. I was like, bring him. I'll battle him. Bring him. I'll battle him right now. And Hammer pulls up, and he got his car full of, he got jewelry on. He got the Oakland A's joints on. He got all of that. He's in a Cadillac. I'm like, how's this dude got a Cadillac? Like, how's he got a car? Like, I'm driving a broke Nova, like, with no radio in it. This dude's got a brand new, looking brand new Cadillac. This is like 86, 87.
Right.
And I say to the dude through the window, yo, I heard your MC Hammer. Let's battle. I want to dance battle you. And he just pulled off. Didn't even say yes, no, nothing. Just brrr. So I remembered that. So then the video comes out, and he disses Run DMC in the video.
Ah, yeah. Turn this mother
Jam
out?
Master, and Jam Master Jay was the guy who got me my start. And it's Run DMC. How do you want this Run DMC? They're the greatest rap group. They're the Rolling Stones of hip hop.
Right.
They performed at Live Aid. They're the greatest. They're the greatest rap group of all time in 1987.
Right.
Damn.
Biggest rap group of all time. Crossed over. And I'm with Houdini on. So they did, right? So we do our video, gas face, whatever, the Hammer part, whatever. But that's not what Hammer was mad about. What Hammer was mad about was our album came out and was called The Cactus. And his album was called Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em, but we didn't call it that on the East Coast. We didn't call MC Hammer's album Hammer Don't Hurt Him. We called it Turn This Mother Out. Because we didn't care about that record.
Right.
So all we knew was Turn This Mother Out. And the record does millions of records, and we're like, how is that doing millions of records? The Public Enemy ain't. LL Cool J ain't. And Slick Rick ain't. Like, what? This is whack. Because he used that Can't Touch This? That's why? Like, that's whack. And his Zubaz pants, he looked mad, cheesy. Like, we're out here in the street.
Right.
He's looking like a cornball. He looked like a straight bozo, dog. Straight bozo.
Yeah.
But then you take it one step further and you get just the greatest rap group of all time. Like, who are you? So what Hammer got mad about is that on a song called The Cactus, which is our title song from the album. And now, mind you, our album on the West Coast was so impactful that when Ice Cube heard it, he came to New York to work with Sam Sever on America's Most Wanted. And Sam Sever stood him up. And that's how he got with Chuck D in Green Street. But that album, the beats, if you listen to Dre, if you listen to Straight Outta Compton, which came out 6 months after our album.
Right.
You hear the beat.
Same drums.
You hear, but Dre told us that to our face at our album party. Him, Eazy-E, Cube, they told us to our face. So Hammer was mad because on the song called The Cactus, my partner, P. Nice, said something in a stank hole, the cactus turned Hammer's mother out. Now, for us on the East Coast, that's lyrical wordplay.
Right.
You don't talk about my mama.
Album. That's how he took it, though.
Right.
That's how he took it. We weren't talking about his mother. We would never diss anybody's mother.
Right.
But the wordplay was crazy.
Right.
For us. For us, the cactus turned Hammer's mother out? That shit is whack. Yo, come on, man. Stop that.
Right.
That's a drop the mic moment.
No,
he took it like we're talking about like we turned his mother out.
Right.
Right. Gotcha.
The other part that we didn't know is that he was Black Mafia family. That he was BMF. And that they put a hit out on us with the Rolling 60 Crips to kill us over that line. And that's when we found out, oh, this dude is real gangster.
yeah. A whole lot of rappers found out.
Yeah. So we found out he was really gangster. But you know what? To this day, I've never seen a man face to face. To this day, the only time I've had any words was with his brother, Louis Burrell, and I chin checked that dude. At BRE in New Orleans. And it was funny because when I went to JLB, I got to meet Joe Cole and I got to meet Big Meech and I got to meet all those dudes. And they would kind of fill me in on what the real deal was.
Right.
And it was hard to get my head around that, we were really that close to being killed over Iran.
Wow.
But that's what he was. So Jay, that's what he was really mad about was the fact that my partner, and by the way, to this day, I'm the one who gets all the heat.
Right.
To this day, everybody's like, "Oh, why did you do that?"
And you didn't even say it.
He didn't even say it.
Why did you? I didn't say, no.
Right.
My partner said the cactus turned Hammer's mother out. Now, that line is still dope to me. I'm sorry, it's a dope ass line.
Yeah, it's a dope line.
Yeah.
We played with. So for us in the East Coast, we played with wordplay a lot. Double entendres meant a lot. No, on the West Coast, they Too Short, Digital Underground. There was no wordplay. It was you say what you mean what you say.
Right.
So growing up in the
There's no
South,
double entendres, not until and not even with Hyro and 93 Till Infinity and Casual and Delafonte. Even with all those dudes, they were just Mr. Dabalina was a straight record.
Right.
It might have been dusted with that, Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina, Mr. Dabalina, how you doing? Their wordplay was not like double entendres and all. That was East Coast heavy.
Yeah.
Hey, Serch.
Yeah.
So I was always taught that there's always a white man behind everything. So are you telling me the first East Coast West Coast beef was with you guys?
Pretty much.
Talking about Helma Mama.
Yeah, pretty much. We were the first East Coast West Coast rap beef.
Here we go, baby.
Real rap beef, but I mean real rap beef. But I mean, look, it's not real. Listen, what I'm just saying is, I mean, nobody died, but and it's terrible that Tupac and Big died.
Right.
But I mean, it was real. I mean, there was no counter. It wasn't like he would come to New York and we would have people on the street looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We didn't get down like that. I did have one moment where I was going to go after him, but it didn't happen at the final UMTV rap. And I had some people there, but it didn't really go off like that.
And back then, y'all didn't have the hip hop police.
Nah, I don't even think. I think the hip hop police was like Dolores Tucker and Tipper Gore with the stickers, which they didn't realize was going to make hip hop more popular.
Dolores Tucker.
The parental advisory sticker.
Familiar.
That's the one that went after Tupac.
So Dolores Tucker and Tipper Gore were the ones who created this parental advisory sticker on albums.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that was going to prohibit young people from buying music.
Right. And I always say music is a drug.
All the way to the bank, bro. We laughed all the way to the bank.
Absolutely, because it validated it almost like the federal government recognizes this.
VL, people wanted records that said parental advisory. Right. It's always been about rebellion. It's always been about fuck your parents. Like,
right.
When was it not about that?
Right.
And now, not only are my parents calling it ghetto trash, but they're saying, oh, it's ghetto trash, and it got language?
Right.
Right. In addition to it.
Boosting records. We were boosting records that said parental advisory on them.
Hey, well, tell me this. What happened with Third Base? How do you end up back with a solo project?
I mean, that really became, and it actually happened in the Carolinas of all places. I mean, I was in a different place in my career at that time. Pete was in a different place in his career. I was very much wanting to experience the road with my wife.
You found God
on the road with me. Nah.
You transitioned.
I always had God in my life, bro. Don't get it messed up. I always had God. But I wanted my wife with me. I really didn't really enjoy being on the road and being by myself.
Right.
Even though I was around a lot of people, I was very alone. I felt very alone.
Right.
Even with a lot of people around me, I felt very alone. And I just think that it became a bit uncomfortable for Pete. And we just didn't handle it right. We were both 23 years. We were kids, man. We were making a fortune, and we just didn't handle it right. I know I didn't handle it right. I know there's things that I could have done differently. In hindsight, I probably should have got my own tour bus. In hindsight, if I wanted to live that life, I should have just separated myself.
Right.
But I didn't do the things that I should have done. And I think it just became one of these things where, it became a pressure cooker and it exploded. And again, we tried several times to put it back together, and, we failed all attempts. And, my ownership in that is that I know there's things I could have done differently. I know that I had and continue to have, not in the past, but I have defects of character that make it challenging for people on occasion to want to work with me. And I've worked on those things. And, Pete has had similar, challenges. But I do think that, especially now, it would be nice if we could resolve our differences and go back on the road together and do shows. I'm just not sure we're able to do that at this point.
Serch, so I just met you tonight through Cap J, and that response you just gave, I'm going to give you a hand clap because I've talked about growth. You mentioned growth earlier. For you to give that response that you just gave about the situation, I feel like that's growth in its purest form.
Yeah, I think we're all too old, man. I think, I'm just, and at this point, and Greg Nice, I love what Greg Nice says this. I got more years behind me than I do ahead of me at this point. I'm on the back nine. So it's, we're at a place where if we can enjoy, and I'm not just talking about witness, right? There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might be cute to witness EPMD on stage and say, wow, I saw EPMD, I saw Eric and Parrish back together again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're so dope now that you enjoy watching them. That when they come back to your city 2, 3, 4 times to watch each time, because they put a show together.
Mm.
I think people would be interested. I think it would pique people's interest to see me and Pete on stage. But I think after a minute, I think people would be like, all right, that was cool. I think we need to put a show together. And to put a show together,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have more than just a friendly relationship. You really need to have a bond.
Right.
You need to put the show together that gives the people what they haven't seen in 25 years.
Right.
Like, we haven't done a show together in over a quarter century.
Right.
Eesh.
So to just get on stage and recite our lyrics would be cute once or twice.
Right.
But for us to perform, to go back out on the road, we need to be MCs again. Now, I haven't had enough of a conversation with Pete to know where he is with that. I know for me, I'm in a different place. I love MCing. I'm doing shows regularly every Sunday. I'm out, at Proper and, playing outside and being outside and hosting events and doing my timeless touring at the Hard Rock with, performing with people. So I feel ready, but I think it would take time for both of us to get ready.
Right. You have to find that bond again.
Yeah, and to find that bond and find that camaraderie, because there was real camaraderie. And,
Right.
We were really, regardless of the mistakes we both made as young men, we put a show together. Like, the performances we put together were impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I really honestly feel that if we can't get back close to that, it's not really worth going out.
Because you don't want to be
for-
Dipset versus the Lox.
Right. And let me tell you something. This is something I haven't shared to anybody, but I'll share it with you. This might go viral right now. I spoke to Jim Jones 3 days before that battle happened, and I can show you the receipt.
What?
I told him,
What?
bro, watch the Jadakiss Fab battle. Watch
Mhm.
how they're going to pick you apart. You have more hits than them, but if you don't work, they will outwork you.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent me back a text that said, LOL, we got this.
Right.
And then Who Shot Your remix happened on stage, which was planned from the door. And that became one of the greatest diss moments in the history of our culture. Hey, yo, Tech, let's make something happen. This is New York, right? This is what these dudes want, right? I don't do Instagram. I don't do Twitter. I don't do none of that shit. This is what I do. Right?
Yes.
Floored them. Floored them. It was a TKO right then and there.
Yes.
All burner, all raise a hand down. The game is all jaded. Anything not dropping all flavors. He's a dick, you pussy, y'all neighbors.
Oh.
2 extra whores, I'm in a new Aston. 2 extra doors with a quick flip. I don't try to stretch for more. 100-step powder, extra raw. Get it from Giuseppe, either him for the essays. I've been rapping this back for around for a decade. Still trying to get mommy to sock the Mela Leche. Know if I take her out, I could pop her the next day. Right?
True.
Yes.
Yo, I don't know you. You ain't familiar. I don't care who shot you because they ain't kill you. Father wordplay, I'm a son of a bitch. Brothers are decent, ain't none of them kiss. Jewelry is fake, ain't none of them rich. Come on, man, it was over. It's over.
Yeah, certain guys you just don't mess with, man.
Yeah.
They weren't prepared. Yo, they were unprepared.
Yes.
And it was to come on stage with those lawn chairs. I was like, oh boy, this is going to become the WWE. And it did become the WWE. It became Lesson 101 of how to get fucking bodied in a battle. But what they did, and what they did is what I did when I was battling. You size up your opponent. You know how to strike them. You know where to strike them. You know when to strike them. You know how they're going to come at you. You know why they're going to come at you. You know when they're going to come at you. You know where they're going to come at you from. Because that's what I walked into every battle. I might not have known the person, but that was my mentality when I was coming off the train, going to any project in the 5 boroughs, to battle dudes. Because I knew, whatever he had on, I had to start memorizing from the moment I saw him. Why? Because my mind had to be 10 steps ahead because I knew my first battle didn't even matter what dude was saying. I'm focused on what his clothes look like and why he looks corny.
Right.
Why his girls. I literally said to this one dude, it just popped in my head. I said, yo, you're head to toe fucking Coliseum looking corny and your girl's behind you drooling. Why? She's now horny.
Damn. Where'd you get the confidence?
And his boys are not trying to give it to him. And they're like, oh. You know, they're trying to keep it under their breath.
Right.
Where'd you get the confidence from, Serch?
My boys. Really, my boys in Redfern, my boys in Ocean Village, my boys in Wavecrest, my boys from Lynbrook, my guys from Long Beach, GYP Posse, Sub Rock, Zev Love X, may they rest in peace, Onyx. That's where I got the confidence from because I would spit my rhymes and my boys would tell me to my face if I was corny.
So you've been rocking out. To my face. So you've been rocking out with Doom for a long time.
Since he was 14 years old.
Self Love X. That's MF Doom.
Okay.
Yeah, since they were 14 years old. And I told them, when I get on, you get on. It's funny, I just found the Mr. Hood album. And it's so funny because my name is spelled wrong as the executive producer on the back of that album.
Oh, wow. Hey, speaking of executive producing, your time at Wild Pitch, that's where you went as a solo artist?
Right after, yeah. So right after, I put out Return to the Product, which was my last solo album on Def Jam. And then I went there as the, I guess I was vice president of A&R.
So Back to the Grill, all that was on Def Jam?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so tell me, how do you go from Def Jam to Wild Pitch, and what was your role at Wild Pitch?
So I submitted my second solo album, and Russell didn't want that. He wanted a third base album. I didn't want to do a third base album. So Barry Weiss, who is the president of Jive Records, would always say to me, every time he saw me in the street, he'd say, Serch, the second you want to become an executive and do radio, you're going to come work for me at Jive. The second you stop working, you're going to come work for me, and you're going to do mix show promotion at Jive.
So he already saw it.
So, well, everybody did, because it became almost like a Rain Man kind of thing, because I studied every program director, every music director, anyone who would touch my record. I knew them front to back. I knew where they went to high school, where they got involved in music. As long as there was an article written on them, I had studied it.
Right.
So it became like this running gag. Tell me about myself now. Steve Hegwood, Brian Douglas, tell me about myself. Tell me about me. What do you know about me? Frank Ski, when he was in Baltimore. Kathy, tell me about me. I heard you know all about me. Tell me about me. So I did, because I was in reverence of these people, because they controlled my career in the palm of their hand, literally. So it was already a given that I was a promo guy. I was a radio promo guy in the cloth of an MC.
Right. So
Barry Weiss would say that. So Barry Weiss would say it all the time, and Stu Fine would be around Barry all the time because they were friends. And I loved Stu because I loved Main Source. Breaking Atoms was one of my favorite albums. I loved the UMCs. I always thought he had a good ear. I just thought Wild Pitch was kind of just whack. Their logo was whack. Their energy was whack. Like, and then I heard all these horror stories about how the artist treated Stu and this and that.
They had Gangstar too, right?
Yep, first Gangstar album, correct. So I get a call. Oh, and Chill Rob G, Fight the Power.
Oh man, Chill Rob G was the man.
Right, the one that Snap stole from them.
Yes,
That's
sir.
how he got his big deal. That's how Wild Pitch got their deal with EMI. So, anyway, long story short, I don't want to go back to third base. They don't want my solo album. So I said, you know what? I'm going to test Barry, see if he's telling the truth. I went into Barry's office. I said, I am officially no longer recording any more music. He said, great. He took me downstairs and he put me in an office and he introduced me to a guy named Jack Saturn and a guy named Ken Lane. And we were like, guys, this is Serch. He's working radio. Guys, Jack, da-da-da-da-da. These are your bosses. Go. And he walked away. And Jack Saturn and Ken Lane are looking at me like, I guess that's your desk. Go sit there. I said, okay, what records are we working? Who do you want me to call? So I started making calls on UGK records, on R. Kelly records, on Aaliyah record. I'm just making calls.
Right.
And I'm putting numbers on the board. Oh, by the way, John McNair just added Aaliyah. He just added da-da-da. No, you're not here to get ads. We just want you to get mix show. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. How the fuck do you get an ad without a consultant? I just asked. The fuck you mean you were asked? Yeah, I asked. The very next day, I come into Jive. You're like, yeah, that guy you called, John McNair, we hired him like 2 weeks ago to do the exact same job you're doing. Barry didn't know, so we have to let you go. As I'm leaving the office, Stu Fine's walking in to me with Barry. And he said, oh, I heard you got hired. I said, yeah, hired and fired in 2 days. He says, what do you mean fired? I said, oh, they hired Horsey. We always called him the horse. They hired the horse, the Kicks. He's coming in here in 2 weeks. This is his job, so I'm leaving. He goes, so what are you going to do? I don't know. He goes, why don't you come work for me? I said, fuck out of here. And I went home. And then my lawyer called me. He goes, yo, Stu Fine offered you a job. I said, Stu Fine ain't got money to hire me. He goes, well, he doesn't, but EMI does. I said, what do you mean? He says, you'll be senior vice president of Wild Pitch, but your money's coming from EMI. I said, all right, say less. They gave me a 3-year contract, no cut. And my first project, I said, well, the only way I'm going there is they have to sign OC. They have to put out Word Life. And that's how I got OC as deal. And then I worked on Fat Cats and Bigger Fish with the Coup and a couple of other records. But 18 months later, the label was, they shut down the label.
Oh.
So I sat home for like a year and a half. And then I put together nonfiction. And then we put the nonfiction record out. Yeah.
Were you there during Entice's tenure there?
Bro, not only was I there, I directed all her videos. I did Hush Hush Tip. Yeah, I directed all her videos. Tyson Beckford's first video was in an Entice.
Wow.
Tyson Beckford's first modeling job was on my video set.
Was that
Ann Hardison told me she had just signed this new incredible model named Tyson Beckford, and I was like, yeah. I said, Ann, whatever you want.
Nice.
Yeah, but I shot both those videos, Hush Hush Tip and the other video, which I can't name escapes me. I shot it in L.A.
Oh, that's what's up. Yeah, we had her on a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I know.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So
yeah.
So radio promotion turned into your thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did radio, and I continue. We still do radio promotion to this day. I mean, I'm not as involved anymore, but like we talked about, like all the guys that became, Colby Cold and all these guys who were the mix show guys, they're now,
program directors.
Big guys.
Right.
I mean, program directors. I mean, Colby's president of programming for Urban One.
Right.
Doc Winter was the night jock at JBT in Jacksonville, Florida, when I met him, when I was working records. G Wiz was his intern and doing mix show on the weekends.
Tell me this.
I remember Doc. I told Doc I was holding Doc's daughter Taylor in my arms when she was born. She's now 32.
Now that you've seen all these changes in music over time, and like you know records that you're passionate about. As soon as you hear them, they drop. You're like, oh man, they just. When you're promoting today's music, are they songs that give you that feeling, or are any of today's songs able to give you that vibe?
I only work songs that give me that vibe. For example, like right now, I'm working this Nisha Nashe record, Jackpot. I know for a fact, I don't care who, I can tell you without certainty, sooner than later, Nisha Nashe will be as important as Mary J. Blige. Period. End of conversation. I don't need anyone to tell me anything different because I know it for a fact. So yes, absolutely. There are plenty of records. Bodie James. There are plenty of artists.
Tell me real quick for the people, how do you spell Nisha Nashe? So just in case somebody wants to look it up.
Yeah, so the record's called Jackpot. Jackpot. Nisha, Neishene. Nisha Nashe.
Okay.
But the record's called Jackpot. It's on Spotify. You can find it anywhere. Yo, that record's a smash. Period. End of conversation. Record's a smash. Period. Because when I heard it, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. There's to this day, and I got to be honest with you, I find it lazy. I really do. I find it lazy when people of our generation say, "Oh, this mumble rap is trash." Oh, this you're being lazy. Because here's the facts. The facts are that once most of our generation went over 30, they stopped listening to new music. In fact, 98% of them stopped listening to new music. 98% of our audience stopped looking for new music after age 30. You only listen to the artists that you loved between 18 and 30, every generation. Only 2% of the world's population looks for new music and new artists after age 30. So don't tell me that these artists are whatever and the new artists are trash and you don't know because you haven't looked. And I don't care what you tell me, you're not in it like I'm in the mud. I'm finding artists 7 years later blow up. To this day.
Everything you're saying is true. Everything you're saying.
But it's not. But just so we're clear, brother, DL, it's not me saying it. It's Nielsen saying it. It's Billboard saying it.
It's facts.
Ad Age saying it.
Right.
It's just a fact, and it's based on Gallup research. I'm not just making this up because kind of my homeboys are over 30 and they don't listen no more.
Right.
I'm not saying this is like my word is bond. Forget about me.
And that's why a throwback party is always popular.
Right.
Of course.
Throwback stations.
Yes.
Yo, bro, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We're the age, right? When our mothers, grandmothers, whatever, when they were 55, 50, 45, Urban AC was their joint.
Right.
They were listening to Urban AC. Why? They were listening to Alexander O'Neal. They were listening to Luther Vandross. They were listening to Frankie Beverly and Mays. They were listening to Confunction. They were listening to Tina Marie. They were right?
Mm-hmm.
But our Tina Marie, our Confunction is what? Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, Queen Latifah, Moni Love,
Dougie Fresh,
little bit of Boyz II Men, little bit of Bell Biv DeVoe, little bit of Jodeci, little bit of Mary J. Blige, right? But then it moves into Little Kim, then it moves into Hot Boys, then it moves into Juvie.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's been in Atlanta ever since.
Puff. Right. And maybe a little bit Atlantic Star. Maybe a little, some of that 89, 90 R&B that we, Back to Life, Soul to Soul, like, things that melded into the culture, Loose Ends, Lisa Stansfield. Like, those things squeaked in, right?
Right.
But after 30, we were like, yeah, doors closed. Whatever we listen to. We good. I'm good. And if Mary puts out a new record, of course I'm listening to Mary. Why? Because she's from my era.
Yes.
Right.
If Fat Joe puts out a record, I'll listen to a Fat Joe record. Why? He's from my era.
So you knowing and understanding radio and having new music out right now, I was wondering, do you feel like there should be a bigger place for hip hop artists' new music on Urban AC?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
you know, like we hear the new Mary J, but we don't hear the new Serch. We don't hear the new Nas. We don't hear the new Buster. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And there's a reason, because there's a methodology to radio that is still antiquated. And that methodology is you play what's called a gold recurrent or a power recurrent, because it's the most familiar to your audience in that age range. Unfortunately, and this is just what it is, if you look at streaming numbers for a new Big Daddy Kane record, or streaming numbers for a new Fat Joe record, or even streaming numbers for a new Buster record, and Buster's new album, I mean, who produced it? Pharrell, Swiss Beats, Dre. I mean, he had an all-star lineup.
Right.
All-star. Big lineup. Spent stupid money. Killer Mike wins 3 Grammys. Nan music on the radio. Nan.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Album of the year. First time ever, by the way, gentlemen. First time ever. Album of the year record had less than 1,000 to 2,000 spins. Ever. At least with Nas, when Nas won in 2020 for Album of the Year with King's Disease, he had a record that was at like 15, 20,000 spins a week.
Okay.
He had a hit. Like legitimate hit. Killer Michael won just on the fact that it was an amazing body of work. He had name a record on Killer Mike's album that played anywhere.
Right.
At any time.
You can't.
Right.
You can't. It was really a body of work.
Mm-hmm.
It was an anomaly in the culture. So, yes, you're absolutely right. But there's an antiquated system which says, oh, the audience will turn the station and they would turn the channel and they will go to something familiar. And we can't afford to lose that market share, because every time we lose a point, it means we can't bill it.
So
Whether you
why
like
is
it
that?
or not, radio is still based on commercials.
So why is that lane open for R&B artists like Mary J?
Because Mary J has such a huge audience, and females are the number one target for radio. So, of course, Mary is the Aretha Franklin. She's the anomaly.
Do you think Nelly could come back and make his way
Anybody
into
can
urban
come back.
radio?
Well,
no, I
anybody,
mean like
anybody,
really
anybody.
appeal enough to the ladies to reach urban
Absolutely.
AC regular rotation.
Absolutely. But it's not about urban AC. It's about these bomb stations, these these classic hip hop stations. The one that Cap works for with B Pays, right?
Right.
That station. There should be the way we had Mix Show, guys. And maybe you guys can start this. Maybe help me. The same way we had Mix Show, right? What would happen during like when Jams was on, right? Or PEG, right? You'd have the rotation records. You have the Jodeci records. You have the Mary records. You have the Shy records. You have the Boys II Men records. Belle Biv DeVoe records. Ralph Tresvant records. Boom. Then there's a rap record. Then you have this record. You have this record. You have a Maya record. Maya record featuring Jay-Z. Boom. Big pimpin'. But then on the weekends, what happened? 10 to 2. Mix Show. What'd you play? New music. Big records. Maybe some remixes. Well, why isn't that the format for Mix Show at these stations now? Why can't Cap J play the new Busta Rhymes record and sandwich it? Play it with Hands Where My Eyes Can See, but then go into the new record and then sandwich it with another big hit record. I don't care if you sequence new hit, but why aren't we having a Mix Show discussion on those channels?
Right.
Why? Because they're scared. They're scared of losing points. And also, what happens is the DJ becomes a personality. The DJ now has to sell. And now the DJ has a voice. Radio don't want you to have a voice no more. Because then now you're controlling the airwaves. And that's dangerous for them. Because once you control the airwaves, you control the audience. Once you control the audience, then they can't control you.
Sound like a shot, but I ain't gonna take it that
way. But it makes the most sense in the world that like a Star 94.5 here in Orlando, or PGG in Charlotte, or the station in y'all should absolutely have a mix show that focuses on playing great hip hop. Period. And it should be from the Busta Rhymes of the world and the Nas's of the world, but also the Kendricks of the world.
Now they do get down on the weekend. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
The mix show on the weekend is a little more expansive. So
right.
Saturday
but is it a mix show? But is it Cap? Is it a mix show, or they're just letting the station get opened up to playing more music?
No, it's a straight up mix show.
Well, then that's beautiful.
Most people on the weekend give you a little more freedom. They got DJ Bill Black on there now. Nabs is on there.
Oh, nice.
At first.
Oh, I love Nabs.
Yeah.
But I mean, like for me, like, and you mentioned the Serch record. Like, honestly, I could care less if my records are on the radio anymore. I don't need my records to be on the radio anymore because I don't need my music to carry the burden of my lifestyle. I just make music for me. I put it out for me. Right. And if the music is out and people love it, great. If they don't love it, great. I could care less. I really could care less. I don't service records to radio anymore that have my name on them. My music, I post it on my page. I'll upload it. I'll say, hey, this is my music. This is my new single. And I'm done. Because the truth of the matter is, and this might be a flex, and I don't care if it's a flex or not, but like I put out It's a Vibe, right? I put out that song last summer. Yo, bro, it's not about, I'm driving a $350,000 car. That's my car company in that bitch. You think I'm worried about a record? I'm worried about my Karma Automotive Group moving 2 billion cars this year.
Right.
I could care less about my record getting 1 million streams. So what, I can get $1,500? I'm pulling up on a $500,000 electric vehicle. Fuck with your boy. I'm pulling up on my block, in my hood, with my car.
Flex.
My company that I have equity in.
Right.
What am I worried about, bro? And as much as I love you, I love that you mentioned that, but I could care less.
Hey, well, that's a good
I'm not worried
word.
about that stuff.
That's a good word, man. I think we covered all the bases, all three of them.
Yes. I love that. Let's go home.
We got the third base.
Let's circle third and let's head home.
We get ready to head home, man. Hey, we appreciate you spending this time with us, man.
Yes, sir.
Bro, come on, man. The most valuable commodity I have is my time, and I couldn't think of a better way to spend this time than with you guys.
Hey, man.
So thank you for the opportunity to let me share my experiences and my perspectives. And I love you guys for having this platform. So thank you.
Hey, well, we appreciate you back. It's the Capital City Podcast, and we're getting out of here. That was a legendary. I'm attaching legendary to your name. That's all right with you, Serch?
Whatever you say, Cap.
The legendary MC Serch. I'm your man, Capital J, alongside my main man,
DL Glass.
And we're out of here.